I was an Army officer's son, so my father served in World War II. I grew up elementary school, California, nursery school, Hammond, Indiana. Then from California, we moved to Germany in 1949. From Germany, we moved to Fort Benjamin Harrison in Indianapolis, Indiana. In Indianapolis, Indiana, I moved to Japan. From Japan back to St. Louis, from St. Louis to West Point, and from West Point, then I took my own international career. My father was one that made it very clear that I was going to get good grades. He told me he would drop me off at West Point, and then he would come see me when I graduated. And he expected me to fulfill whatever my potential was in all the areas of military life.
Paul Bucha graduated from West Point in the top 5% of his class. He then went to Stanford to get his master's degree and received airborne and ranger training during a summer break. In 1967, he arrived in Vietnam with the 187th Infantry. His brigade commander gave him 30 days as a second lieutenant, and then 30 as a first lieutenant, before giving him his first company.
Then he gave me Delta Company, 3rd of the 187th, a newly formed company, and I was the only person in it. I would form up at formation, do all the reports, Delta Company all present and accounted for, sir. I'd pass in review alone, and then he started filling me up with the rejects of all the other units. We had the reputation, we were called the clerks and the jerks. And I used to think, my God, I have a few very, very smart guys and a lot of really mean guys. What a great group to go to war with. And that unit ended up being one of the most highly decorated units in all of Vietnam. I remember asking them early on, I said, look, if you had your choice of company commanders, you wouldn't pick me. But if I had my choice of soldiers, I'd pick you. So I have the advantage. I said, I don't know what Vietnam's like, because I'm the only non-returnee in this group. But if you'll trust me, I'll bring you all home.
On March 16, 1968, Bucha's 89-man company was the lead element in a massive counterattack following the Tet Offensive. They were inserted by helicopter into a suspected North Vietnamese stronghold, and for 2 days they destroyed enemy fortifications and base camps and eliminated scattered resistance. Late in the day, on March 18th, the company found a clearing and had a chance to resupply and evacuate casualties from heat exhaustion.
After we resupplied, I said, okay, reform, push into the jungle, let's keep going. And the LRP unit went about a quarter mile into the jungle and said they saw people carrying water containers. They started hearing noise and they asked permission to recon by fire. And I gave them permission to do it just as it was getting dark. And the whole mountain opened up. And it looks like we stumbled across a reinforced battalion of NVA regulars, along with remnants of a VC regular unit, the Dong Nai Regiment. The LRP group was engaged, and my medic, Doc Moore, said, sir, I'll see you later. I think I got some patients. And he ran up to the front. And one of the guys come back, said to me, he said, sir, there's a Y in a tree with a bunker or something behind it, but everybody's pinned down. And I said, what do you mean a Y in a tree? He says, it's a Y in a tree, you can't miss it. So I ran forward with my RTO. And I guess what had happened is they'd had a machine gun at ground level and a guy with an automatic weapon up in the tree. So you were getting fire from up and down. And as our guys came into this very small clearing, it's when they pinned them down. I just came around the corner and started throwing hand grenades. When the weapon stopped, I looked around and stood up. No one was firing at me. I figured that's it. And I got back. They said, "Where's the Y in the tree?" I said, "There's no more Y in that tree." We were 89 of us and probably had 15 cut off or had been killed. And I said, just go into an area. Everybody down, form the perimeter as best you can, and let's find out how many we got left and where we are. We were beyond artillery, so I couldn't bring in any supporting fires. Helicopters were above, started coming in, and all of a sudden the mountain would open up firing at the helicopters, which usually the first sign that this is not a small unit. And so for the next 4 or 5 hours, it was just us firing off against others, firing in, hoping to hell they weren't going to just decide to overrun our little 25-yard by 10-yard position. I remember leaning down next to this rock saying, now we're all going to die. My mom's going to be asked, where'd your son die? And she'll say, where did your son die? And someone will say, Normandy, Quezon, the Argonne. And she'll have to say, coordinates XYZ, because there wasn't a name for this damn place. Right then, this young kid who had just joined us when we were getting the refueling, he says, sir, we're kicking the hell out of them, aren't we? And I started laughing. I said, well, I guess we are. I mean, we were down with fire everywhere, and we were firing with little fire and ammunition we had left. We were trying to conserve it, and all hell was raining down on us, and this kid thought we were winning. And I remember thinking, okay, it's going to get dark. We better do something. So I said, if they knew how small we were, we'd be finished. So I had everybody move out and put claymores out, distributed hand grenades to everybody, and I said, I'm going to yell out numbers, 1, 2, 3, and this to reflect the hands of a clock, the hours. And if I say 3, 6, then number 3 and number 6, throw a hand grenade. And I don't care where you throw it, just throw it. And we're going to do this all night long.
Bucha did everything possible to make the enemy believe they were a much larger force to prevent them from being overrun. Throughout the night, he continued to encourage his men, shore up their defenses, and direct artillery and helicopter gunship fire against the North Vietnamese.
And the rest of the night, though, every plane in War Zone D and C came to visit us. Every helicopter, every Aussie Canberra jet, every Air Force plane. Dragon came in, he says, I can do things, can you put out some lights? I said, I don't have any lights. And then my brigade commander says, I'm coming in. And he chopped a hole in the canopy with his helicopter and says, throw on the most critically wounded, and we got them out. He kicked off some beanbag lights for me so we could mark our perimeter.
By daybreak, after the last of his casualties were evacuated and his remaining forces accounted for, Bucha and his men left the area, leaving more than 150 North Vietnamese dead on the battlefield.
Next morning, we got everybody out, and I saw my first KIAs that were my men. I remember thinking, I asked them to trust me, and I promised them I'd bring them home. And those 10 guys did, but I didn't. And every day of my life, I think back what I could have done better that night. What could I have done to bring those 10 home? I guess in April of 70, I got a call from a sergeant telling me that my DSC had been upgraded to a Medal of Honor. And I told him I didn't deserve it. He said, what's that mean? I said, I think I'm going to turn this down. And he said, if I can be blunt, he said, it's not yours to turn down. He said, this belongs to your men. You wear it for them. To this day, I know I don't deserve it. And after all, 10 guys had died. And almost everybody who was there that night was wounded to some degree. I just didn't think that's the stuff of which medals are made. And as a result, when I'm around the other Medal of Honor recipients, I consider myself a visitor. As a young Army officer, compared to business or anything else, you have the opportunity, the burden and the privilege to look a young man in the eye and ask him to go do something. And they know what you're asking them to do in all likelihood means they're not coming back. And these American soldiers look you in the eye and they wink and say, got it, sir, and grab their weapon and off they go. And that is such a privilege, to wear that uniform and to be the old man, if you will, at the age of 23 or 24, that there's nothing in life that compares to that responsibility and that privilege. Nothing.